Okay, we got a team. Sounds good. So maybe maybe for the record, maybe before you get into your act here, maybe introduce and say where you're from.
I'm Helen Picard, 447 Waverly Road.
Mark Svensson, 201 Hamilton Road.
Mark Rogers, 19 Trinity Court.
And Rhea Rogers, 19 Trinity Court.
Excellent.
So last week was Dr. Seuss's birthday and Read Across America Day. And this week was Stan Limpert's birthday. So in honor of those occasions, and as he nears the close of his term on school committee, we offer this ode to Stan Limpert in the style of Dr. Seuss by Helen Picard.
S is for Show Me the Metrics, MCAS and more. Will help us discern what is in store. We'll budget the money if you can prove that stores will go up. They've got to improve. T is for Technology. We had to upgrade. For 9 years, Stan worked for progress to be made. We finally arrived in the 21st century, wired and Wi-Fi and Chromebooks. Yippee.
T is also for teamwork. Brian Gross by his side keeps balance with arts by process to abide. A is for Achievement. It's part of raise. Measures and testing will bring us their praise. N is for Nothing can stand in our way. There's progress to make every day. It's not always public, it's not always big, but little by little, it's deeper we dig. Until there's solutions for us to report, communication is key for community support.
L is for lunchtime. Let's make this clear. It is very important to stand to eat near. Coffee alone won't cut it. All day breakfast for us. There we will talk business from budgets to buses.
L is also for leadership. He's bold as a chair, ready for subcommittees, welcomes others work there. 2 superintendents he's brought to our schools. Hoddle was hot, and Price is plain cool. He threw in Jim Mealy as a bonus, no doubt. Jim helps with the finances to figure it out. I is for Innovate, DECA, and robotics for all. Project-based learning on weekends instead of them all.
M is for Meeting Man Stan. Yes, it is true. He shows up when we meet, whatever we do. From FinCom to Selectman, Library Trustee, he asks questions for our future and chairs a historical society.
M is also for Math. We cannot leave that out. On this one topic, we may hear him shout. For STEM or for STEAM, we will not back down. Math is as important as reading, he's found.
P is for Prudent. Nothing sudden nor short-sighted. It must be strategic for Stan to decide it. E is for Energy. Engineer. Efficient, even, and engaged. No rhyme here. Engineer.
R is for Realist. No pie in the sky. Stan wants us to progress. We at least need to try. T is for Thankful for Stan on our team. He's helped our schools and our town. This gratitude we mean. When his term is done, we'll still see him all over. No doubt he'll keep working to help North Andover. And it spells Stan Limpert. That's what the...
Thank you.
Excellent. Excellent.
I'll have to get that done in calligraphy and frame.
Yeah.
We need a different team.
Thank you so much.
That's it. And just under the 3-minute time limit, too. Perfect.
No, that would be times 4 is 12.
Yes.
Yeah.
12. There you go. Now you're thinking.
Yeah.
All right. Anyone else spoke? No, that's everybody. But we do have our student report. Courtney, batting solo again.
That just reminded me, I think Cole might be an A-push, so he might be on the Washington strike. Right.
That's no excuse.
You can strike it in, right?
Well, hi everyone. As I mentioned last time, the North Andover High School's Drama Guild went to the Andover Drama Fest. They did not win anything, but they are very proud of the outcome that they did. They put on a good show from the technicians who helped support them and the producers, and that's all what really mattered in the end. Also, Mr. North Andover will have their show March 17th, so please come support all the seniors who is putting themselves forward as a contestant and competing. The tickets go for $10. And Next week, March 15th, I think it's a Wednesday, I believe, the senior portals for the People Forms, scholarship form, closes. And if you're a senior like me, who's already experienced her senior slide, then good luck finishing everything the week before everything's due. So yeah, that's it.
Good. Great.
All right.
Any questions for Courtney?
No, we're good, thanks.
Thank you
Thank
very
you,
much,
guys.
Courtney.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
Don't slide too much, Courtney.
Yeah.
I know. I'm trying not to.
All right.
Picking myself back up.
Just checking.
Checking or telling? Okay. Next order of business is the approval of minutes. I don't know if people had a chance to look at them. There was a lot of votes our last time through. Can we take and just accept this all as one group, or does people have some edits or anything like that?
Yeah, I'm good.
Yeah, I just meant I think I went through these. We took a lot of motions, and I'm very happy Mr. Gross made all the motions, so it was very easy to double check them all.
Yeah, no,
So that's what I was referring to. I wanted to make sure that everyone was comfortable with the motions that were made, and we had a few abstentions and stuff like that. So we're all good with that. Okay, great.
good.
So I'll listen to a motion then.
I move that we accept the minutes as presented in the packet for the February 16th meeting.
Seconded.
Motion made by Mr. McDevitt, seconded by Mr. Gross to approve the minutes as they're presented in your packet. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed, no. It's a 5-0 vote. Okay, quick chair's report from myself. Just wanted to make note. I noticed in the paper this week the passing of Carrie Marchese, who was a longtime volunteer in town. I don't know if people know her, but most people know her from the thrift shop. But I found out from reading the obituary she actually worked for the school department as well for a time there. She was assistant to the director of community programs. So I know she did a lot for this town. I thought we should quickly recognize her achievements and her passing. A couple other quick things. Later on in the meeting, I think the superintendent's going to talk about on a new business kindergarten information meetings. Myself and Ms. Mabley had the great fortune to go to the senior center on Monday to start that process and talk to a group of about 30 seniors about the class size reduction plan, the kindergarten plan. It was a very good meeting. Got some good feedback from our seniors. Pretty well received. I would say, most of their focus was on the finances of it, I thought. Anything you want to add to that part of it? Yeah. It was well received, so I was happy we were able to do that. And I think you're going to go down there with the town manager next month as well, so that'd be great. And lastly, I don't know if you want to touch on this too, Jen, but the FinCom met on Tuesday night. Jen and Jim presented. Stan and I were there as well. Moral support. But it went well. Again, it was well received. The questions were great. And do you want to add to that?
No, I think it was really well received, and it was quick.
It was quick. It was quick. So that's all I have for my chair's report. Want to lead into yours now?
Yeah, just a few things. First of all, two shout-outs to two of our athletic teams at the high school. First of all, the wrestling team won the states, and that's huge. So that's a really big deal. Congratulations. And then our girls ski team came in second in the Division II, lost by, I think, 8 seconds. 0.8 seconds. So that's very exciting. Shout out to that team. Yeah, music's great. And then I did want to let everyone know that on Monday night, we had our annual kindergarten night that was incredibly well attended. I think it would be fair to say there were about 250, and that might be an underestimation of how many people were there. And had a lot of conversation, and it was a really well-received evening. So we talked about the process for kindergarten. We also did talk about the kindergarten building, and for anyone at home, we've now put on our website a whole bunch of FAQs about the expansion of the ECC to include kindergarten. So if anyone's interested, we're also happy to answer any additional questions that come in. So we did that.
That event was the information night for parents whose children
Children will be in kindergarten next year. It's okay. And it was really interesting. Out of the 250, I would say there were probably only about 40 or so hands went up of people who had kids already. So there was a lot of new families to the schools.
So what does that say about potential enrollment?
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, hopefully. Yeah. So, kindergarten enrollment, as we talked about, is so hard to predict.
Yeah.
So hopefully with the new kindergarten space, it'll be easier to handle these fluctuations. So, all right.
Can I
Yeah.
just a quick question? So every year there's always kind of those, and again, you may not know the answer, but parents who might have a summer baby, right?
Yep.
Who is, July, August, and they hold that child for the next year, just to give them, that extra month
Yep.
or so. Are we starting to see any or hear of parents who say, I'd rather they go when they're kind of supposed to, rather than hold them back that year?
I've not heard anyone based on the fact that their kindergarten would be attached to an elementary or make that decision. I think that decision, as a parent who had a kid August 24th, is such a complex decision that I've not heard that being the deciding factor.
Okay, I just didn't know if that was
Yep.
something people were thinking
But
about.
that's no one said that to me. That doesn't mean anyone's not thinking it.
L is July 24th, we're kicking around. Just going.
I have August 28th as well.
And then there's a few things I just wanted to update you. Deb Holman has really been working with the students, especially the student council at the high school, to really help clarify the cell phone policy, and they've come up with this whole an acronym CLEAR about, and that's the, and so they're piloting at third term. It would mean an ultimate change to the handbook, but I just wanted to inform you that they are doing a pilot to see how that works. Which basically, if you read through it, is that cell phones can be used for educational purposes within classrooms, but if they're used for any other purpose, that is not okay within a classroom. The current policy is they just can't be there, and that's not the realistic. So anyways, I just wanted to let you know that's going on. If you hear anything, if you remember also the Stevens Coolidge Estate contacted us. I did meet with the person in charge of the Stevens Coolidge Estate, which was a really wonderful meeting, great guy. And we talked about this summer. I think that our leadership team will do one of our leadership days at the estate, which will be a really nice thing. And we just had a great talk about how we can advertise all of the things that are going on at the Coolidge Estate. So he got in touch with Cynthia Parent, and then you'll start to see Coolidge Estate, as we've done with the library, Coolidge Estate stuff in our nightly news. So I think that will be good. And then the third thing actually relates to the last thing on my report is Phil DiCollegiero got me in touch with two graduates of the North Andover Public Schools who really want to talk about using open space in a sustainable way. Their premise is that a lot of open space, especially in New England, is used for manicured lawns that actually don't really contribute much to the overall environmental impact in a positive way. So we actually are going to be piloting some sustainable space here at the central office building. They came and walked through the space. So things like they were talking about blueberry bushes out here. This is a space that's so public. It's a public space. It is, let's be honest, not beautifully
I was going to say that. Is that why they chose it?
well, that's why I was very.
Grass is great.
But that's why I was very willing to let them have it,
Yes.
right? And maybe some apple trees down below in that area down there. So I actually connected them with the Stevens Coolidge Estate because they have such beautiful gardens. So that's another way. So more to come. Some of it may be produce and all of that, but we're really going to get kind of a plan for this space that I will present to you. And I think that would be really wonderful to have this kind of be a very public space for how you can rethink gardens and also kind of lawns.
Yeah.
And it's great. It's two students, one who's at Northeastern and one who's at Emory.
Great.
So more to come.
Proud of him.
Yeah.
So can I ask you a quick question?
Yeah.
So I'm going back in my years here, but probably about 3-4 years ago. And I can't remember exactly. I think it's the Friends of the North Andover Trails organization. Did a lot of work with some of our elementary schools to build and help put in some garden space at them. So, for example, I know at Kittredge, kind of by the big tree there, there's kind of a circular area with all native plants. And I know that they did some, I think it's Sargent, I don't remember if they did Thompson or not. I think they did some at Franklin.
My Girl Scout troop worked with that guy.
So I'm just curious if, there's an opportunity for
Yeah, I'll
us
reach out.
to combine some forces
Yeah,
on
yeah, yeah,
that. And
absolutely.
I'm not sure if, I think the guy's name was Jim or James. I have it written down.
James,
So
I have it too, yeah.
It's down in my,
No, James McCarthy. is
That's
the guy.
exactly right.
that's him, yes.
It's another, he has his own organization that does this. And he would be the perfect guy to reach
Yeah.
out to. So
Great, I'll
we-
reach out.
Yeah, yeah.
And there are
perfect
only a
guy.
few basic things to make you then I can't remember the terminology now, green space, so you need like a bird feeder,
It's
certain
like a
number of native
species-friendly
plants.
type- Yeah,
Yeah.
and
yeah.
this is exactly what these students are thinking about.
Okay.
And he's very
Perfect.
enthusiastic.
Great, I
Yeah.
will.
Connecting them with him. would be
Yes,
a
and
good
also
idea.
over at Stevens Group. So, anyways, just
Good idea.
more to come, but I just thought I'd tell you about that.
Awesome.
That's
Quick
great.
Question on the cell phone policy
Yes.
pilot. Do we have criteria for extending that, or is this just going to be a try it out, see how it
They're going to
works?
try it, and then they're going to do, there's been a lot of student involvement, so kids will be surveyed, teachers will be surveyed, and then it will get back to us. And you will see that, well, you won't see, I'm sorry, but you'll watch.
He's still,
But I will be paying attention.
I've really asked Suzanne Egan to look at our handbooks and actually to combine it into a district-wide handbook rather than all these different handbooks. We're going to be working with the leadership team on that idea. So when we do that, we can incorporate, if this is a successful pilot, into the handbook moving forward.
Just if I could, great. I think it would be great if we could establish criteria for success and a rollout criteria. And secondly, I think there might be policy impact as well, so it's
Right.
not just the handbook.
Yes, I think it's
there definitely is.
yeah. So I just want to let you know there, because right now the you can't have them is not really the right
Not
answer.
sustainable.
Yeah,
And-
because then it becomes an argument, and so
You can have mine.
yeah. All right,
Thank you.
thank you.
Okay, moving on to old business. First item is second reading, approval of North Andover Middle School's Nature's Classroom overnight trip.
So again, just to remind everyone, the idea here is that all of the class will be going on the same date to 3 separate locations. So in the 8th grade. So I just wanted to let you know that's the only significant change.
And that didn't impact the fees, really.
Yeah, it did. I think it's about the same as it was last year. You know,
230,
yeah,
yeah.
yeah.
Mhm,
So
that's about-
but it really helped. Kind of it was much better for the school.
Yeah, oh, for sure.
And remind us again, you told us last time, how do they decide which group goes to which location?
So I know it's by team. I don't know who gets one. I know I'm going to Ocean Park, Maine. Thank you.
Any other questions?
I just want to mention again, I think I mentioned last time that I hope that, I know it's very hard to schedule, and I get that, but trying to move it away from November, I think would make sense, back into earlier in the
We agree.
late fall, so.
Do I hear a motion to accept this?
So moved.
Second?
Moved by Mr. Limpert, second by Ms. Mably to approve the North Andover Middle School's Nature's Classroom overnight trip. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Any noes? Gonna press.
Because my son will be attending.
Okay. So it's a 401 vote. Mr. McDevitt votes present. Okay. Next item is the second reading of approval of submission of the MSBA Statement of Interest. In your packet, there was a very long motion, and there's a one small, I don't think I passed it out to you, right?
Yeah.
Pass it over to him, please. The only change, let me take one copy for myself. The only change, there's one quick change that we had to put in this. This is a very specific vote we have to take, and then the Board of Selectmen has to take as well. And so we just added, for your interest, after the word statement of interest in the 1, 2, 4th line, Mass School Building Authority Statement of Interest. After that, we submit. That's the new line that says will be submitted to the MSBA no later than Friday, April 7th. Okay, that's the only change that we had to put in there.
And we changed it from last time, and Jim and I have been working on trying to get this done, so we're really working on this. And we talked a lot about priority 2, which was the severe overcrowding. We've actually made a decision to add a second priority, which is priority 7, that's the MSBA numbers, which is replacement of or addition to obsolete buildings in order to provide for a full range of programs consistent with state and approved local requirements. And specifically, we are highlighting the fact that the science labs at the middle school are not up to date and are obsolete in many ways. So that is, we're going to be going under two priorities. We figured, we looked at a lot of examples, and lots of schools present under two priorities, and we felt that the science labs are in desperate need of upgrade. So just wanted to tell you we added that.
And so, because it's very specific, we need to actually read this motion, so do I hear a motion?
I move that the following be resolved. Having convened in an open meeting on both February 16, 2017 and March 9, 2017, the school committee of the town of North Andover, in accordance with its charter, bylaws, and ordinances, has voted to authorize the superintendent to submit to the Massachusetts School Building Authority a statement of interest that will be submitted to the MSBA no later than Friday, April 7, 2017, for consideration in 2017 for the North Andover Middle School located at 495 Main Street, North Andover, which describes and explains the following deficiencies and the priority categories for which the town of North Andover may be invited to apply to the Massachusetts School Building Authority in the future for priority number 2. Elimination of existing severe overcrowding as determined in the judgment of the authority, specifically to decrease the class size from a current average of 24.6 students, and for priority 7, replacement of or of addition to obsolete buildings in accordance to provide for a full range of programs consistent with the state and approved local requirements, specifically replacement of our antiquated science labs, and hereby further specifically acknowledges that by submitting the statement of interest, the Massachusetts School Building Authority in no way guarantees the acceptance or the approval of application, the awarding of a grant, or any other funding contingent on the Massachusetts School Building Authority, or commits the town, city, regional district to the filing of an application for funding with the Massachusetts School Building Authority. In addition, the school committee of the town of North Andover confirms that the following criteria apply to the request. The school facility has been and will remain in use as a public K-12 school, serving public school students for the useful life of any additions, new construction. The school facility has sufficient spaces to deliver its required educational programs, except for the lack of space to allow for the decrease of existing class sizes. The school facility is structurally, functionally, and educationally sound and has no other deficiencies, and all other building systems are operational, safe, and adequate for the delivery of the required educational programs. The need for additional space is not the result of neglect or the lack of routine or capital maintenance by the district. The district acknowledges and agrees to abide by all federal and state laws and rules, regulations, policies, guidelines of the MSBA, and the district agrees to use the MSBA's pre-qualified OPMs and designers. The district has the ability to raise the local contribution required to fund the district share of the project in a timely manner, and the district has no entitlement to funds, and the awarding of grants, if any, is at the sole discretion of the MSBA. So, I think I have a headache now.
Hold on, 1 second, Mr. Limpert. So Mr. McDevitt has made a motion. Second, thank you.
Would you like me to clarify?
Thank you. Discussion.
What, in that very last line, what does that mean? The district has no entitlement to funds.
So basically, the MSBA is saying by applying by submitting a statement of interest, you are not guaranteed or entitled to funds from the MSBA.
Basically, this is the first step. They're not making any commitments, guarantees.
And we're not making any commitments either.
No one's making any commitments to funds. This is just the first step in a long process. I would invite, I know this board had already looked at it, but the public, check out the website, the MSBA website. They have some good stuff on there about this process, and this is just the first step. All right. Any other further questions?
Just a reminder that if this does go to us being able to receive these funds, I want to make sure that we pay attention to doing the cost-benefit analysis of taking it with all the terms and conditions versus if we fund it elsewhere. And I know that's something that's way down the road, but just as a reminder, especially for those paying attention at home, if and when this comes up, this is something we have to balance between the offer from MSBA versus our own capabilities and which one makes most sense.
You're absolutely correct.
Thank you.
So after we vote on this, the Board of Selectmen will hopefully take this up in a couple weeks at their next meeting. Any other questions? Nothing?
Great.
All right, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? No. The ayes have it, 5-0. Thank you very much, and thank you, Mr. McDevitt, for reading all of that.
For the motion.
For the motion. Great motion. That's because you abstained. You took the last vote off, and that's why you had to do it this one.
Punishment.
As punishment. All right. Okay. Next one is the second reading of the approval of textile recycling. If you recall, I recused myself last time, and I'm going to do the exact same thing this time. So I'm going to leave the room and pass the gavel to Mr. Vice Chairman, Mr. Limpett. Let me know if this should pretty quick.
Yeah, really. So I would entertain a motion to approve this textile recycling request.
Well, I think, right, the motion would be that we are happy to allow the PTOs to explore a relationship with the Bay State Textiles Group, but we will not be entering into that agreement with them?
Yeah, so after review from Attorney Egan, she recommended that really we allow this to be between the PTOs and Bay State Textile. Us getting involved doesn't make any sense.
So we're okay to
So
let
what
them
we're saying is
pursue it?
that we are going to authorize the district PTOs to cite the boxes. That's what we need. So we would need to motion to authorize them to cite the boxes, but
Okay.
not enter into a relationship
Right,
with Bay
sure,
State.
so-
And I think it's also important that that this has to be in accordance with the building principle. We don't
Correct.
want to over-say. So the idea is that we will allow them to cite the boxes on our property, but we are not going to, Suzanne Egan does not think we should, as a school or a school committee, enter into a relationship with Bay State Textiles. Let that happen between the PTOs and she's reviewed it, she's looked at a whole bunch of things, and that's her recommendation.
Okay, so at each school, the PTO, each PTO would.
Right,
I
Decide
think
and
they're
figure out.
trying to work as a group, but yes.
yes.
And it doesn't guarantee that each principal will agree that they can find a spot, right?
So in
So,
fact, there's no motion required.
We just have to say it's okay for them to cite the boxes.
Move to approve their citing the boxes on school property.
allowing them the,
She thinks we should say it's okay for the boxes to be on
So our
property.
town council is advising us to approve the PTO's ability to work with this organization.
To cite
To
the
cite
To
the
boxes.
just the
Right.
boxes on the property.
Yeah.
And we have no liability, responsibility.
That, she
or
thinks as long as
governance.
we don't want to enter into anything with them for that
Got it.
reason.
Thank you.
okay.
So is there a motion?
So I'll make a motion to agree that, or to allow the PTOs to enter into an agreement with, or to pursue an agreement with Bay State Textiles to cite boxes, no?
No, just say, I make a motion to allow the PTOs to cite the
Okay.
boxes.
I make-
Authorize, yeah.
The motion to authorize the PTOs to cite the boxes on school property
With principal.
with principal approval.
Thank
I'll
you.
second that.
Thank you for helping that.
The only question I had was, no conflict with town about.
We, we talked to, she talked to Andrew.
Good.
Anything else? All those in favor say aye.
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 Thank you very much.
So we're gonna find Mr. Teresa. Well done, Mr. Limpert.
It's like a reunion tour.
I know, yeah. Dangling. Okay.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Lemke, for taking care of that. Appreciate it. Okay, next item under old business, the second reading of the approval of the Cambridge Institute contract.
So again, this, last time we took this up, we asked the town attorney, Egan, to look at it, and she has been in contact with the legal department at Cambridge Institute, and there are some changes that she recommended. First, the indemnification provision, previously Green and the school indemnified Cambridge, now Cambridge will indemnify the school, and she thinks that's in the best interest of us. The renewal provision, previously the contract was automatically renewed, now the contract may be renewed annually upon written notification by the school. So she didn't like that it was annually renewed, so she thinks we need to vote it each year, and that gives us a little bit more
That makes
authority.
sense, yeah.
And then the section excluding North Andover from any obligation to enforce or be involved in the legal relationship between the student and Cambridge was included. So the student has a relationship with Cambridge, and she wants to make sure we don't get in the middle of that. So these are her recommended changes, and her recommendation is with these changes, which which Cambridge has agreed to, she recommends that we vote the new contract.
A question, we also had an issue with exclusivity. Has that been reviewed, or?
Yeah, we've worked on that exclusivity and have talked with them about that. It's not a concern that I hold,
Okay.
having talked about it.
But it also looks like the exclusivity is now limited to recruitment regions, which I don't recall in the original agreement.
That used to be there, actually.
It was always there?
Yeah.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah,
Thank you.
just having worked on that one before.
Great.
Okay.
I think Mrs. Warren would appreciate the fact that it is not an automatically renewing contract, so, yes, so if she's watching,
Yeah. We're thinking about you.
Do we hear a motion to accept the revised contract with Cambridge Institute?
So moved.
And seconded.
Moved by Mr. Limpert, seconded by Mr. Gross. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed? None. 5-0 vote.
And I
Okay.
will then sign it and send it off.
Great, thank you.
Yes, you will. Okay, I think there's another handout regarding the, moving on to new business, the first reading of the FY18 revolving accounts. Mr. Mealy, I assume?
So, as you've seen before, we have the revolving accounts, and the big questions are always, what are the changes in each account, and what impact will it have on prices, fees, tuition? So I can tell you to not bury the lead that we're recommending no increases in any of our revolving accounts, food services, community programs, transportation, that they all remain the same. And I'll just go through each one. The biggest one we have, community programs. And these are good stories because the changes in the revolving accounts are due to increased participation or increased enrollment. And that's the case in community programs. You can see the revenue numbers are higher from 18 to 17. And Rick Galante, who does a great job, has put in his projected increase in students for next year based on this year. You can see an increase in materials and supplies, and that's basically, I think most of you might be familiar with the ability to pay online that we have. It's been there, it's been well received, but not always, doesn't always function as well as we'd like, and so he is going to upgrade that service. And so he's got some additional funds in there to do that. And then the expenses are due to the increase in student enrollment. Obviously, you have to hire additional staff and materials to make sure that those programs can be offered. But the bottom line is no recommended changes to the fees, and we will operate in a surplus. So that's community programs.
And let the record show that Rick is in his office right now working diligently at 7:36 tonight.
Mr. Mealy, a question. If he's upgrading the online payment, does that also, will that include food service too? Will be?
That's a different, Erica's very happy, and she did not participate when we made that move. She already had one, and she's happy with it, so she'll continue.
Similar, second question, is it okay to take
Sure,
this
sure.
account by
Good.
account?
Good.
So it looks like we're doubling the expected surplus. Or should we expect additional services from that, or we'll be faced with a 20,000 additional surplus next year and have that as something to consider for reducing?
Yeah, we've been, if you recall, for 5 years, we were making a payment to cover the construction of the Kittredge modular classrooms. We got through that, and now he's starting to show a surplus again. It's not yet to the ideal amount that you want for a revolving account, so it would be another couple of years, I think, before we get to that point. There's two benefits to running the surplus for community programs. One, we haven't been able to charge the full amount we can to community programs for the space that they use throughout the district. So that's been covered through instead of transferring that expense from the general fund to community programs, we've been just keeping it in the general fund. So that'll allow us to ease up on the general fund a little bit for utilities, mostly. And then also with the kindergarten project possibly happening, one of the concerns we have is we have a very tight budget. We have an amount that's been set. So something similar to what we've done with the Kittredge module, which is community programs will be utilizing space in that building, so we could use funding from them to help in that as well. So two benefits to having it showing a surplus.
Yeah, no, that's great. That's
Yeah.
great. So,
Yep.
thank you for going through that.
Mm-hmm.
So, I mean, just very quickly, I mean, I know he's in his office, but the level of programs that are offered, and to know that they're here, that we're not increasing fees, I mean, I think is just absolutely fantastic. I mean, the kids do the most amazing things after school and before school with the breakfast program. So I'm really excited to see that we're not increasing any fees on this. I mean, I think that, you know, parents, they do their best to make sure that their kids are able to do these things. And if we continuously are raising prices on them, then, you know, I think it becomes prohibitive. And I'm going to say, I think it's probably been about 2 or 3 years that we have raised anything with this.
It's a couple years, and it hadn't been done in a while, and it was only to get us through
Right, that
Kittredge.
last.
And I'll remind everybody that if you do the comparables, our fees are on the very low
Yes.
end, and the increase wasn't that much, so it kept us on the very low end. We still
Right.
are very low in comparison.
Yeah, it's fantastic, and it's such an asset.
This is right. I'm sorry. The enrollment numbers are up almost 8% of our total student population.
Yeah, and as you know,
That's
Andrew's alluding
incredible.
to with Rick, all somebody has to do is make a suggestion, and he's like, "Yeah, we can make that happen," and boom, it happens.
That's great.
Kids have another program that's being offered, and they sign up, and we have a waiting list, and it happens.
That's super.
That's awesome.
Absolutely
Yep.
super.
All right, equally good, and you guys always get a visit from her each year, is
No
Erica
snacks.
Murphy,
I brought
We
snacks.
got snacks?
I brought snacks.
Okay.
Food Services.
Yeah.
So what you're seeing here is, if you recall a few years ago when they really tightened up on the requirements for what can be served and the portion sizes, it really had an impact on our revenues. And Erica's been very creative in putting the menus together, but making sure that they comply with our regulations. And we've seen each year some growth in participation. Plus, the fact that we're getting more students helps as well. So again, the revenues are due to increased participation in meals, which obviously means that expenses go up in meeting that demand. But also, she has contractual increases for her employees, and equipment is getting older, so she had to bump up her repair line, and she also needs to update all of the point of services, how she refers to it, the cash registers,
Right.
throughout the district, so that's why you see a jump in that line. And then you can see a jump in the health insurance. She's the only one that has to pay for, it's an enterprise fund, so she's responsible for all benefits. Health insurance for her employees that are eligible, and she had a couple who have now signed up for it, and that's why you see a jump there.
Mr. Mealy, a
Yep.
question. You know, we've all been discussing in one form or another impacts on the reduction in federal funding for various things. Is this
Mhm.
one of those areas where
We haven't heard anything that would indicate there's any
problem?
reduction. You can see the federal reimbursement.
Yeah.
It's based on meals. But yeah, we haven't heard anything.
They'll give you a couple days' notice.
To be on Twitter.
And this maintains the required minimums in the fund?
Yes, and there's another requirement that it maintains. Again, we're not promoting an increase. We don't require one. But in order to be eligible for the reimbursement, you have to maintain a certain price, and we're still within 8 cents. We still have an 8 cents buffer of having, being at the minimum that you can charge.
So, Mr. Mealy,
Mm-hmm.
just very quickly, when you talk about just upgrading with the point of service kind of collections, I don't remember if all elementary schools migrated to this, but I know Kittredge did, where the kids put in a numeric code. Are all of them now? I know in the beginning of the year I thought they were piloting it. So I was just wondering, is that part of what's happening with the additional devices? And
Well, the intent with the additional devices, they'll all now be consistent.
okay.
Yep.
So I'm wondering if, and it's going to sound silly, but whether or not we see more students purchasing lunch because they're just able to go and there's money on the account and they just key their numbers in. I mean, I know I get my statement at the end of every month, and I think couple of my kids are buying a round of snacks for the tables.
Yeah.
I'm training them early, so. But I'm just curious if we're seeing an increase in consumption and the consumerism because there's just money there. Like if I didn't send them in with the $8, then I wouldn't have bought waters for everyone.
Yep.
So.
It won't be long before Erica will be in front of you to do her
Okay.
annual presentation, so it'd
Okay.
be a good question to ask her.
All right, thanks.
Yep.
Just a quick question on the health insurance. Are they eligible for the same health insurance? Is it the same package for
Yeah,
everybody?
it's basically,
GIC?
we don't have a lot of employees in food services who meet the hours requirement, but it's just by hours. So if they get the, meet the threshold.
But it's the
then
same plan, same GIC, okay.
Same plan, yep.
Okay.
Okay, athletics, we don't anticipate a change of any kind. It's pretty steady for the last couple of years. Same number of athletes for the most part, so we are projecting same revenue and same expenses.
What's your guess as to the last time we changed these fees? It seems like 4 or 5 years.
For athletics, it's been quite a while. It might be that. We did a little bit of restructuring where we gave a benefit to more than one sport.
Right.
Right.
That seems like, yeah.
4 or
that was-
5, yep.
Yeah, 4 or 5 years ago.
Yep.
So these have been pretty steady for 4 or 5 years.
Yes, they have.
Interesting.
Speaking of those fees, if I can ask a question, I've enjoyed signing up for community programs with the online payment, but when you do a sport, you register them online, and then you have to send a check into the building.
Yeah.
Is there a reason for, is that because
yeah.
they hold the checks, or why
Yes,
is that? Oh, is that
and
why?
it has to do with making a team or not making a team.
They don't want to write checks back?
It's really hard to refund, so it's a lot easier just to give a check back. Sorry, you didn't make the team,
Right.
but here's your money back.
Right.
Yep.
Okay.
So transportation, again, based on increased number of students, we are projecting an increase in paid riders. We don't run that account similar to the food services where you're trying to maintain some type of a surplus of 3 months of expenses. That one, we don't really need to do that. So the funds are used to pay for the contract, the bus transportation contract for regular education. So that's why you can see most of the funds are committed.
Do we have enough new riders to justify moving another bus into the revolving out of general, or?
We're going to monitor that. We don't anticipate it being that much more,
Okay.
but we'll monitor it.
Okay.
Yep.
When does that contract come up? I feel like we do a 3-year contract, but are we?
We did a 3-year with 2-year. We're in the 4th year, and so next year we'll have to go out to bid.
Okay,
Yep.
all right, I was thinking it was somewhere close.
It's coming up. It
Okay.
comes up quick, yeah.
Yeah.
It's interesting because in just watching the listserv of items that come across my computer, people are often asking about transportation contracts, and they bemoan the fact that more often than not, when they go out to bid, they get one bid. They always talk about collusion between the companies. Okay, you can have that one, and we're going to take this one. So we'll have to see if we can structure it to get some competitive bids on that. Exactly.
Yeah.
And the preschool, talking to Mary Lou Connors, projecting that that stays the same. Tuition, no need to change. We made that change last year.
Yeah.
Not that we increased tuition, but we kind of broke it out differently for the programs, kids who were staying longer.
Right,
Yeah.
for lunch.
But that doesn't need to change for next year. It's working well.
Is that buffer enough? It looks real thin.
Again, it's the same, that we don't, most of the funding for preschool comes from the general fund. So what we collect in tuition picks up some expenses, but it's just going to supplement that program, not run it.
All right, so worst case, you just have to move money from general into the revolving if it doesn't balance.
Exactly.
Okay.
Yep.
Okay.
And then the other ones are all the small ones, and we don't really anticipate much change there. Custodial overtime, so the money that comes in for the custodians who cover events just is like a pass-through and is used to pay for overtime for the custodians.
This is sort of the historical amount that we see every year.
Exactly, exactly. And just so people understand, what it means when you guys approve this is whatever amount we put in there, we can't spend any more than that. And in order to do so, say for instance, we got more money in for custodial overtime because there were more events, we would have to come back to you guys and say, okay, we want to spend $80,000 because we've collected $80,000 and get approval to go higher.
Okay.
Rental fees, same thing. We collect a certain amount, and then it's just mainly used for some repairs and maintenance. Example, middle school auditorium. We were able to do some work there and use money, not from our maintenance account in the general fund, but also from this account. Exactly. And then non-residential special education, that's a good example of one that we may be coming to you, because sometimes we'll get a district will ask us to take on a student, and we'll agree to some amount that they'll pay, and we'll put it in here to use for special education services. But it would probably be more than the $12,600. We just don't know that until it happens. So if it does, we'll be coming to you to say, okay, this is the situation, we need to increase it to this amount.
So this is not things like Scarlet Knight Academy or tips? Or
No.
things?
This is for a student, is non-residential, who we may have a program that they are sending their student to.
So they get tuition in.
Exactly,
Right.
exactly.
So I would engage in a contract with the sending district for that student to come. At present, I believe we have 2.
Middle school after-school programs, that one hasn't really seen any activity. That one and the extra stipends, I'm keeping them there one more year, but they really haven't seen anything. Kind of from a bygone day, I think. I don't know what they were used for, but if that continues to be the case, then we'll probably just drop them
When was the
going
last
forward.
transaction?
What's that?
When was the last transaction here?
2 years ago.
Okay.
Yep.
So going back to this non-resident special education, in the same vein, where did the Cambridge Institute fees come into the budget?
Yeah, it's a revolving account. These are the ones that have to be approved by school committee.
Okay, but there is another revolving.
There
account
is,
for that, okay.
specifically for that. And the trip that Gilly and I went on to improve relations or try to build
Came from
relations
that revolving account?
was paid out of that. Yep.
Okay. But it's not, doesn't require school committee approval?
It doesn't. I'm not sure why only these, but these are the ones that every year need to be approved by the school committee.
Is this like MGL or something? Is this state law? Or?
According to Lynn Savage, in state law, these are the ones that have to be approved. I'll double check with her.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
run it by town council.
Yep.
So. Okay, that's just the first reading of these accounts, so we'll, any other further questions, I'm sorry?
No, I mean, again, I mean, not having to raise fees, again, just shows the excellence in administration, and it's good not have to be faced with a tough decision, so thank you.
And it's good that that Erica seems to be sort of making up some lost ground.
She has been, yeah.
Food service, that's good.
Yep.
She was really struggling a few
Mhm.
years ago, right?
Any complaints?
From?
Quality of food is good now?
You're always going to get those, especially if you talk to Franklin Elementary School. But, yeah, you know, the traditional complaints about cafeteria food. But I think the fact that the sales have increased over the last few years is indicative of how hard they work to meet the desires of the students.
Yeah.
Yep.
I do know, I hear on occasion portion size commentary from 4th to 8th graders
Oh, into the
saying
high
that
school.
the slice of pizza is
Yeah.
just too small and I'm starving. So I've hear that from kids every now and then.
The
My own as
contradiction,
well.
yeah, the contradiction is interesting, that you'll hear the complaints about the portion size, and then you'll see the amount of food that gets tossed out.
And I participate in that program as well, so yes, I do see that. But yeah, it was right around 4th grade, starting to hear, it's not enough, so.
Okay.
Okay, any other questions? No? All right, so we'll approve those next time. Okay, next item, discussion of the change in overnight trip process.
I thought in honor of Mr. Gross's last meeting in physical presence that I would put forward an idea that I have about changing the overnight trip process, which I think might clarify and make it a little easier. So And so, in our comments about a recent trip, one of the challenges here is we approve these trips months, sometimes years in advance, so that people can go buy tickets, they can start raising money, they can start soliciting funds. We have to do that. You have to do that as a school committee many, many years in advance, or months in advance. The problem is the details are very often never known. We don't know what flight they're going to be on. We don't often know what hotel they're going to stay on. We don't know exactly who's going to chaperone. We don't know exactly what students are going on the trip. And so it seems to me to have only one part of the process be your approval doesn't make a ton of sense. So if the kids are somewhere, the Montreal trip, which is not going, was an example because it was so close, we wanted to know what the bus was. But often we approve trips with no understanding of what the chartered bus company is because it's months and months, if not a year in advance. So my thought was, and Ms. Zagari's been working very hard on this, was to have a two-part process where you, as the school committee, approve the concept of the trip. The kids are going to go to the Dominican Republic on a service trip. Their vendor they're going to work with is EF, et cetera, et cetera. This is where they're going to stay. This is basically the itinerary, hotel security, et cetera, which is what we've been doing. But then 30 days prior to the trip, and that's actually the second page, is to actually have them submit a whole bunch of stuff to me for approval. Which is the logistics. So let me just show you what we're talking about. So things like, what is the mode of transportation? What are you exactly doing? Do you have enough chaperones to meet them? That's the, hold on, let me just double check that part. Yes. So, and then things like some of the questions that were asked, but the most important stuff for me is, okay, what is the airline number, name, flight, if you see that, so we know who's going, right? I think it's actually it's this one. It's not the it's this part. It's this part. All I'm looking for, if you look at this one that says ECC at the top, that's what I'm saying is the second half. Who's actually going? What are their emergency contact information if they're in the country? How can I get them? What are the departures? How many days of schools are actually going to miss? Exactly how are you going? And give us the information. And if it's a charter bus, we will then route this form to Lucy to make sure it's been approved. If you look on the back here, it's if you're using private vehicles, we need you to upload all of the insurance certificates so that we know and who are actually the parents driving. And then you'll see the hotel, what's the exact, and then finally uploading the list of the students traveling and uploading the list of the staff and the volunteers traveling so that we can actually make sure they're quarried appropriately. So the idea here is this one page, which is this last, is we approve the trip, very similar, same questions we've been asking for years, but I think 30 days prior to leaving on an overnight trip, the chaperones, the people running the trip, needs to submit this to me for approval. Because we often don't get this information. Am I making sense?
Yep.
I thought it cleaned it up a little bit. Thoughts?
So this is obviously just a discussion. You want to replace our current policy, I don't have the policy in front of us, but we're going to need to draft something.
Yep.
And we'll banter about some what we like about this, what we don't like about this, but let's have a discussion about it. I guess we'll start there.
And again, I'm not looking to change anything you do. I'm just looking to add an additional step, which gives us the detailed information, which in my research has not been being collected.
Right. Mm-hmm. But I would just say, looking at this right here, what if you get it 28 days? But this is a pretty hard and fast rule here, it looks like.
Yeah.
I know, that's what I mean. I think it needs to be tied up to throw the word discretion there at
Yeah,
some point,
that's fine.
It would be reasonable.
I was just picking
But,
it.
I know. Well, we'll probably refer to our policy subcommittee anyways to look at it.
Yeah.
Mr. Gross.
So I see in your second part, details will be submitted using the link, which will be included in the email notifying you of school committee approval. So are you proposing that there's a old business on the 30-day review, or I'm not sure what that really means, that we provide the initial approval to do the fundraising at 90 or no less than 90. Is there a second review by the school committee in this process?
No, so the idea, this is actually going to the trip organizer, so when we send them their approval that you've been approved by school committee,
Okay.
they then need to, within 30 days, updo the form.
I see.
So this is just, we're trying to automate this in a
Yep.
way so that we aren't always, how many trips are going, when are they going?
Yep,
It's-
yep.
The only thing that we have done in the past, and, you know, Mr. Gross has sort of led us in that, is making sure that all the boxes get checked off. Number of chaperones, blah, blah, blah.
Right.
And this sort of, now, we leave that all in your hands. So now we're assuming you're doing all that, you're checking off all the boxes, and then the package goes on file, and sometime later, we could go pull the package out of the file and say, oh, yeah, they did have the right number of chaperones or something, right?
Correct, and I mean, truly, when I've watched this now for a year and a half, we're often approving without knowing exactly who the chaperones
Yeah.
Oh,
are.
no, I understand.
So this is
I
just
get that.
trying to,
I get that, I get that. The only thing I might suggest is, rather than approving it, you would just, when you get close to having that package, you would just show it to us, right?
Yeah,
The school
send it
committee.
out.
That would it. We don't approve it, we just see it, right? And here's the names, here's the stuff, here's the flights, here's the whatever it is, right? So we just see that it was all taken care
More
of.
of a
That's all.
notification process,
Yeah,
that, you
yeah.
know, the trip that you approved is, you know,
Here are the details, right?
is actually going, you know, I'll make this up, April, 14th to the 24th, you know, whatever it is that's out
Yeah.
there. Because, you know, the Montreal trip, for example, I mean, had we not met and had it just kind of slipped off the radar, we would have assumed that they were going.
right.
So,
So,
Yeah.
I'm sorry, I would also want to make sure that the detailed information is not missing from the submission. Having done many or few overnight trips with very large groups of high school students, and seeing how other schools behave at some of these, because they're shared at these facilities, things in my mind that are important up front are things like, is there security in the hotel where they'll be staying? So
We
that-
haven't moved that from the first.
I appreciate that, but I mean, I
That's-
just want to make sure that the level of detail in the 90-day review is not skipped in a sense, such that it's not really present, and because it's a 30-day, I can figure that out later.
Yep.
That'd be the only concern I have. And I like the automation process as well. It definitely generates a robust artifact of what the intentions were. But again, I just want to make sure that we're not missing details, or the committee isn't missing details at 90-day review because
In the
you get
initial
another swing at the
approval,
pitch.
yeah.
Yep.
Yeah. Yep. Okay.
And I appreciate the thoughtfulness of this, because it's something I think that you do need to be aware of.
Yeah, I mean, I think I, as superintendent, God forbid something should happen, should have a record of who's on the trip and how to get in touch with people.
Yeah, and that they're for you.
Well, or that you've collected sufficient information to preclude that ever happening, having
Yes.
to do that, right?
Correct, but
You know,
I just,
the right bus company, the right, all
Yes.
of that.
Good.
But then who all, I mean, it's not you, you're not the one chasing down these,
Principal.
okay.
So they get submitted to the principal and then it gets submitted to me.
so the only thing I might suggest is, obviously, you know, work out any kinks or anything like that, but, you know, let's have somebody for either a trip that's just, you know, gone out or, you know, is coming up in the April timeframe, literally just kind of run, obviously it's all online, but let's have it run through and make sure.
Yep.
Use the
You know,
test case, yeah.
And have somebody, you know, who's completed that trip say like, this is a piece of information I didn't have, and I needed to have that, whether it's a, you know, a parent or a guardian cell phone number, or, you know, something else that's there that they just look at and think, you know what, I should be, if I should have it, you should have it as well as superintendent.
And the follow-up to that would be, there could be, you know, as Mr. Gross would say, a hard stop in here. So if I don't have the information by this date, that's it, we're done. Stop, you can't go, right?
Yes.
To force the
That's
issue,
great.
right?
Is the disclosure process part of the new form as well?
The what?
The disclosure process?
Yes, it's actually on the old, it's part of what we already had, which
Right.
was the disclosures. They need to submit the disclosures at the 90 days. Yes.
Mm-hmm.
It's, if you look at the bottom of it, it says, it's definitely on here, I saw it, so let me find it.
I saw it on the
Yeah,
clip thing.
it was on one of the things that you had to do it, I'll find
Yep.
it for you. But yes, the disclosure, I believe needs to be done when we approve the trip,
I agree.
so
That makes
that won't
sense.
change.
Yeah, I thought I saw it too, and now why?
Yeah, I can't
why am
find it,
not
but I
finding it?
we'll make sure it's not, if it's
Okay.
not, we'll make sure it's on there.
Good.
And do you, for field trips, do people have to submit medical forms forms or any of that kind of
So
stuff?
one of the things that we've done, if you'll see, is in the 30-day form, we have routed the list of students to Cheryl Barzak, who
Okay,
is
good.
going to then approve and make sure. So if you see upload a list of students, Director of
Right.
Nursing will share the list with the appropriate school nurses, which is at the bottom of the travelers, students and chaperones.
Got it, okay.
That hasn't been happening,
I
and
was
so
wondering that, okay.
we're kind of tightening up a bunch of things here.
That's good. I just was learning about how SOS does their thing, and they require medical forms if you're gonna,
Yeah, and most of the curricular activities do as well. I know that the marching band has medical forms that if
Sure.
the students are overnight, there is
Makes
that
sense.
information is with
Okay.
with the
So
students.
that's
great.
how we're gonna do it,
That's
rather
good.
than
It'll all
That's
be
for
here.
like nature's classroom, they have to probably. see
any
that.
overnight,
Yep.
that she'll know, and then she can review in case there's medications or
right, EpiPens.
EPIs or any of that stuff.
Thank you.
Cool.
Okay.
So, Mr. Motherway might be the first person to try this new process, so, moving on, if that's
right.
okay.
There's
So-
your
Well, we
pilot.
missed the 90-day window.
Yes, but,
That's
but,
why I wanna, I don't wanna say, I wanna continue having this conversation about this
Yeah,
one
yeah.
yet. So
Yeah.
we'll revisit that, but, so let's move on to the next one. The request to suspend the rules to approve the robotics trip to Louisville, and it sounds like this is a great reason to suspend the rules.
yeah, so as you may or may not know, the robotics team has qualified once again for the International VEX Championships, and they couldn't have known beforehand, they had to qualify. There's 4 kids going, we approved this last year, and he's working on wanting to just get this approved so he can start moving on getting the hotels and the planes and figuring out who's gonna go. But you'll also see, like, here it is. It's still, we don't quite know where the hotel is until it gets approved. I mean, these are things, I just think it's important that we eventually know.
Okay. So, we wanna approve this all tonight, so we wanna suspend the rules, right, Jen?
Yes.
That's what I'm asking for,
Yes.
so that he can get going. He
Okay.
doesn't have a lot of time.
Any other question? Any other questions before we?
You said 4 students, it says right here, yes.
Yep.
All right,
And
so
their
do I?
parents go,
Yeah, exactly, exactly.
So I move that we suspend the rules in order to consider the motion of the robotics trip to Louisville, Kentucky.
Second.
Okay, Mr. McDavid made a motion to suspend the rules, and it was seconded by Mr. Limpert. Any further discussion on suspension of the rules? All those in favor say aye. Aye, 5-0. Okay. Now to the main motion, I'd say. Anyone?
So, Mr. Chair, I move to approve the robotics trip to Louisville, Kentucky as presented.
Second.
Motion made by Mr. Gross, seconded by Mr. Limpet to approve the trip for the robotics team to Louisville, Kentucky. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. That's 5-0 as well. Congratulations to them, by the way.
That's exciting.
That's exciting
I
stuff.
hope they bring the robot that they did last year.
Okay, moving on. Announcement that Hall of Fame nominations are now open and are due by May 15th. Little guidance here. I think last year there was a subcommittee put together to, once the nominations were received. Is that correct? That we did? We went back and forth this one, I think.
We did go back and forth, and we wanted to be really cautious about that because what happened in the past was that all the papers, or the nominations, I should say, came to the vice chair. And the vice chair then took that and then basically presented them to the school committee with somewhat of like a recommendation. And the challenge with that is, if you have 5 people, you publicly have to say 5 people have been put in. We might not necessarily know who they are, unless, Ms. Teresi, of course, grew up here. But the reality of it is, we didn't really feel that was fair. And so, if you look, I think it's the second page here, there's about halfway down in the selection process, it does say that, there's a maximum of 1 per year. And there is, it is reviewed by the vice chairman along with 1 other member of the school committee, and that subcommittee makes its recommendation to the entire committee. And that was kind of the fairest, I think, that we could come up with at the time. But before we get to kind of selection, if there's other things we should change, I think we should modify them before we get down the
Right.
road. Because last year it was, I'll be honest,
I
it
just
felt
started with it,
uncomfortable. You were brand new, and, you know, in
We're
3
gonna
weeks.
have two brand new people.
In 3 weeks, we're gonna have 2 new people, and I feel like we should.
And a new vice chair.
And a new vice chair.
Right, and a new vice chair, and we should
Yes.
have it
Yes.
ironed out.
Right.
So, I'm just putting it out there, I'm not.
So is it by our policy that the nominations are now open? Is that what I
It
understand?
has been in the past that this is the date so we can put them open
Well,
whenever you
the only
like.
thing I would say, I think we've had them open this early because we've been announced it, or not, we're,
Correct.
we're moving into October now when we
Yes.
present this with the professional teacher status. That's gonna be the
I mean,
procedure.
I think that was well received.
I was very well
nice,
received.
yeah.
So actually, one of the things we did was put this on to say, do we want to keep these dates? So we can do whatever you guys want.
Could I suggest to the committee that maybe, just because we're gonna have 2 brand-new members in a couple of weeks, and we're gonna have a new vice chair in a couple of weeks, and this is now, we're gonna honor them in October, can we push this to April and maybe discuss on our first meeting after the election, so we can have a discussion with the new members and get the timeline down and all that stuff?
Well, can we just extend the deadline?
Yes.
I would,
Right.
I mean, because the more time people have a chance to pull it together and talk to their friends and get data,
So you wanna continue, you wanna have the nominations open now?
and then just
and-
close them
The
later,
only thing I'm just,
right?
well, we're gonna have people nominate people, what if we changed other things? That's what I'm saying, what if other things get changed?
The process.
Well, not
Okay.
process, but, I mean, some people may wanna change the criteria. That could happen, I'm not saying it's gonna happen, but that could possibly happen with 2 brand-new members. And I think if we're not gonna announce this or recognize first till October, we probably will be able to have still 3 or 4 months of, I mean, I know a couple of the summer
Right,
months.
right,
but
right.
I'd like to think that we could probably get something put together by the end of April and, still have 2 months of the school year to receive nominations. And, Mr. Gross?
Yeah, so I was just gonna comment, I mean, if I reflect on other honors, like the Pristash Award, it's an honor to be nominated.
Right.
Not everybody's gonna get awarded that award, but it's an honor to be nominated, and I think that warrants public recognition as well. So I think the concept that, we've got 5 people nominated, 1 person is in, but I think we should rejoice in the nominations as well as recognize the excellence in that process. Now, regardless of whether you want to open it now or open it in April and, plan it for October, I'm not gonna have a dog in that race. However, I think it does take a while for people to think about and build the artifacts of, yeah, this is really something we should do. Let's socialize that with others and celebrate the excellence, so.
Did we do that last year, Mr. Did we announce the other people who got nominated?
Did not.
No, we did not, and that's part of
That's why it was,
that's part of the,
because we
Because
didn't,
the
we didn't
secrecy.
feel comfortable about it.
Right,
Yeah.
but I wanted to see who they were.
Yeah.
Not just see the 2 that were selected type of thing, so.
So, and I would, if you are gonna change the criteria and whatnot, again, I would encourage you to think that the nomination process is an honor in itself, and I think that should be recognized and rewarded.
I agree.
I agree with that too.
But I also do think that you ought to try to do this as soon as get it started as soon as possible.
I agree.
Because it does take people time to.
Because people don't live here anymore.
Can I just ask, I think having a debate over all 5 of them publicly could be tricky, but I think actually acknowledging that these people were.
Exactly.
Yes.
And that the committee recommends this, and we could, we could send a letter acknowledging that they were nominated and thank them, and so you could continue with the process you've outlined and also acknowledge who else
Absolutely.
was.
I actually have a different question. So it is the Educator Hall of Fame, and the word educator to me can mean many different things in our school system and in the education of children. And then later in the criteria, it says that they have to have been a teacher. And I think for example, if we had somebody here who was not necessarily a teacher but came in as a principal and was a principal for 20 years or 25 years, they are still an educator. And so I would actually look at perhaps changing in a couple of the bullets that are in the criteria for recognition, that they basically have retired from North Andover. They've spent the majority of their professional career as an educator in the North Andover Public Schools. Would be remembered by students as an educator who led them to achieve more than they thought. I don't think that that's always the label or the word teacher. I'm just putting it out there, but
The committee historian, Mr. Lundberg, when was the last time these criteria were revised or looked at? I mean, to the best of your.
Not for quite a while. And, you know, we've been.
2012?
Yeah, we have been
Yeah, it says
using
right here.
these with only minor revisions really since inception. So these are pretty much the way they've always been. But I do, Dr. Chuck Ormsby, who was the originator of this award, I think was thinking of teachers, but I certainly agree with you, Mr. McDevitt, that I think we should expand this to administrators or whatever we want to call it, educators. I think that's more than appropriate. I think Annie L. Sargent would have easily been able to win the Educator Hall of Fame award had she been around.
How has it generally been announced that nominations are now open?
This way. And, yeah, no, that we
she'll
announce
probably tweet it out. I don't have this, but-
yeah, we announce it, and then we put it on the website, and then we start sort of a publicity push to let people know and try to get it out to the PTO presidents and all that.
PTOs usually discuss.
Yeah,
In light of, I think, what both of you just said, I would feel more comfortable waiting another few weeks, because if you want to change some of the criteria, or if new members have some new ideas to it, I think you're right. It probably won't change a lot, but it may change people's thinking on nominating people. So if it pleases the committee, could we push this off till April?
Just to tag team on the question you just asked about how do we get this out there, I think some of the challenges are the people who are involved in the schools today, unless they're people like you, don't know the teachers who have been long since retired. So how do you get the word out to people who had them in high school or in elementary school that we'd love to have you nominate these people from who are no longer here?
I think it seems to me, at least, a lot of the people that are nominated come from teachers, current teachers.
The
themselves.
teachers do the nominating.
I mean,
Okay.
I think people
That's
remember
great then.
Mr.
All right.
McGravy was pretty passionate about
Yes,
Mr. McCarthy
right.
last year, and
Okay.
So I think that's part of it. But I think we can discuss that. And again, it's not till October.
Right.
I do think we have time to get the word out.
Right, but I do think, you need to do something in the spring. Because
Yes.
I think if you get it to the summer and you haven't really gotten it going, you're going to be.
I agree.
it's gonna
I
be-
would agree.
Worst thing is I've known.
But I do think, that it's good to wait if you're going to change the
My-
criteria, right?
My thought would be to obviously put this in the agenda, the first meeting in April, I think it's April 6th, and then have them open up on 6th, then it'd be the 2 weeks after that.
20th.
Yeah, 20, something like that. That's what I'm thinking. So basically, you're pushing down five weeks.
And you could have it June 15th.
We could do that. So I think we have time to do that, and,
That makes sense.
But
okay?
you're wanting to review the process.
I want to
Voting and things like
review
that.
the criteria, and again, I would like to have, obviously, some input from the,
And again, if you do, as Mr. McDevitt is suggesting, if you do make that change, that's something you will need to alert the community to. That now there's
Sure.
We've opened this up to other people.
It's a little bit broad.
It could have been, a principal of 15 or 20 years or, whatever. So I think that's good. No, that's a good thing. But this is where we can use beyond just tweets, actual newspaper articles and publicity in newspapers and stuff to try to get to the audience that, might not, might be staying at home a lot, right?
I would tend to bet her followers on Twitter are higher than the circulation of other.
Yeah, but they're not, it's an age problem, not a circulation problem.
Not fake news.
Okay.
All righty.
Last item on the agenda is kindergarten information meetings.
Yeah, I have put together a series of meetings between now and town meeting to really get out there and talk about the kindergarten, the expansion of the ECC to include kindergarten. I've done 2 so far, one with the Franklin PTO and one with the Sargent PTO. Both, Ms. Mabley was with me with the Franklin PTO. Both were very well attended. I think we had 40 or 50 people at each one. There's a lot of questions out there. I think it was a really good opportunity for people to ask. You can see we have a whole bunch more coming up. I've tried really hard to think of as many places as that we could partner with. So for instance, the next one, we're partnering right before the preschool book reading time at Stevens Memorial. I'm going in half an hour earlier for the parents who bring their kids. We're doing all of the PTOs. Mr. Mailer and I are going to go to the senior center. And then right before town meeting, we're doing a community meeting where we're going to really target preschool families and invite them through the district preschools. And then we're doing one at the youth center. Rick Gorman and I are partnering for that one. And then I'm doing one at Smolak Farms. So I've tried really hard to get regionally across the town. And I would invite any of you to join me at any time that you want to come join me. I appreciate having your presence. So,
one thing that I might suggest is that what we've done about issues like this around town meeting have been to do a cam show, right? NACAM show.
I've already done one. I'll do more.
But I mean, I was thinking about you and Mr. Mailer doing sort of whatever you're going to do at the senior center.
Yep.
That would be, both sides,
Okay,
sort of
yeah.
the municipal side and the school side, and just do a short, 15 minutes that they could run,
Okay.
on a loop, and
Great. He'll be
Just-
happy to do that with
just
me.
thought.
Will there be cider donuts at Smolak?
You better be.
I hope so, or I'm not going.
I said that a little just, but I mean, I think one reason we're doing this, a lot of people felt like they didn't know about this. When we talked about this for 3-4 meetings in a row in November and December, what are we doing to get the word out that these meetings are happening?
Yeah, so the good
So the
thing is, I'll be putting them out there through all my ways, but the good thing is I partnered with a whole bunch of different people here who will also be getting them out. So the PTOs will be getting them out, the Kathleen Keenan at the library, Rick Gorman's gonna use his networks, and so,
Preschools.
the
Not for
preschools-
lack of trying.
Yeah, I mean, we're trying.
But I propose to you that the challenge is not the school community, the challenge is the rest of the town.
Right.
Yep,
And I like the balance to, places like Youth Center and Smolak Farms, but I think that's really where the heavy lifting needs to happen is, how do we get the Board of Selectmen to help us with this communication? How
Yep.
do we get the media to help us with this? So this is perfect. This is about all we can do as a school community, but I think the communication needs to be broader.
And this has been a frustration we've all had, Mr. Tracy, over time, where we really try, and then people still don't show up. So we can only do what we can do, right?
Skywrite
Yes.
it. That's
I
the only
agree.
thing you.
I agree.
can tell you that so far they've been pretty well attended.
Yeah.
Yeah, we had a good crowd at the senior center. It was fun.
You're a lot better drawn than we've had in the past, just saying.
But the added benefit was there were questions about the kindergarten, but then there were
step over the
questions
line again
beyond that.
today.
It was just a good communication forum. You guys are
Yeah.
fresh.
It was. So if you're around and you wanna join me, just let me know and we'll, but,
Yes.
just let me know.
Sounds great. And they'll be on the website, all these dates and all that stuff.
They're already.
They're up there, all right.
Yeah.
All right,
Yeah.
fantastic. Okay, that,
I was just gonna say the feedback's been very good, so I just want
Yes,
to
it has
say
been.
thank you.
Yes, it has been.
For that, so.
But to your point, Mr. Gross, I think the concern that we've heard so far in our meetings have really been from parents,
Yeah.
not
Yeah.
from community people. I mean, they're nervous about different aspects of that, and I think, we're really doing everything we possibly can to, be open to that.
I fully agree with you, but you think about the ways that this could run into friction, it's by not
I understand.
communicating
I
to the
understand.
rest of the
I
community.
understand. I get
So,
that.
just trying to head off all
I will
possible.
tell you, I did write in the tax bill,
Yes.
about the different, key issues at town meeting for the schools, and this was one of them.
Saw that, and thank you.
Just
as well.
another way I
Well presented.
communicate, so,
I didn't know for my tax bill.
but.
this will not increase if you vote for this.
But, I'm trying in every way I can to talk about these
Yes,
issues.
We know you are.
Like we said, short of skywriting this,
Yeah.
there's only so much you can
That's a
do.
good
so.
idea.
Okay, thank you. Public comment tonight? Yep. Round 2. Now batting.
Helen Picard, 447 Waverly Road. I have 2 questions, and I just want to, first, I just want to say that March 17th at 7 o'clock at the high school is the Mr. North Andover contest. It's the SOS fundraiser for support our seniors all-night party, so I just would encourage everybody to support that event, and there won't be another school committee meeting between now and then. My 2 questions are, one has to do with the kindergarten information meetings that are taking place at PTO meetings. If there are community members who are not part of a school community, not part of that PTO, but they're not available to come at some of the community meetings, can they come to a
Yes.
PTO meeting?
Yeah, absolutely. Think of
Okay.
any of them.
All right. And then having to do with the MSBA statement of interest. Once that's accepted, we move into a feasibility study process. Is that right?
If less than 20% are accepted. So-
Right, but eventually. eventually. But my question is this. With the feasibility study, who pays for that? Does the MSBA pay for the feasibility study, or does the town pay for that?
So my understanding, and again, I'm new in learning about this process, is that they have gotten, and talking to some superintendents, one of the changes that they made when they changed the process was that they've gotten much better about not asking towns to front load all of the funds. So they've gotten really good at reimbursing very quickly on some of these. So we would have to pay part of it, but we would not have to pay all of it. It used to be that the town would front load all of the funds and they'd get reimbursed at the end of the project, which was very problematic for cities and towns. And the changes that have occurred with the MSBA is that is not the process, that the reimbursement comes much faster.
Thank you.
That's what I've heard.
Hi, Holly Lynch, 385 Raleigh Tavern Lane, and we have an event on March 23rd, a school committee candidates forum. So I just want to say thank you to Brian and Stan for all of your years of service. You'll definitely be missed. I have enjoyed listening to you both, and I just want to say,
time?
Yeah. Or at least for the first few minutes.
Yeah. Brian a little more because Stan's a little more talkative. As someone who appreciates quiet, but no, thank you both. I really thank you for your service.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else? Because that is a great job.
Yeah. Good job.
If there's no other public comment, that's a great segue. The last item of business is the recognition of member Brian Gross. This is his final school committee meeting because he will not be here on the 23rd, which will be Mr. Limpert's last meeting. So first, I think we'll open it up to the floor to see if someone wants to roast him or say kind words about him.
Right? That's right.
Me?
Yeah.
I was going to stand for last.
Yeah.
We don't have that kind of time.
So, I mean, I just really want to say thank you, Brian. As I joined, I think you were probably 1 year ahead of me, and now I've had the pleasure of serving on the school committee with you for 5 years, and there's been a lot of questions that I've had, and late night calls, and standing outside on Main Street in the freezing cold sometimes, trying to understand what's going on and what's happening. And so I really want to thank you for all of your patience and your guidance and your support. Aside from a lot of really interesting questions that you asked, trying to dig down to the data and the root cause, I've always been impressed, and it's probably the scientist in you that literally can flip back like 4 years worth of notes and be like, on the third of we asked this question, and you just you have this mind to kind of bring it out, but through everything you've always just I think really had the interest of the students and the town at heart, and the education and where we're going with that. Aside from that, there's 2 other great things that I think have happened as a result. Well, 3. I think I have a good friend who I didn't even know was a neighbor when I first started.
There you go.
I gained a good babysitter, so that was great too. And I had the pleasure, I don't even know what the name of the restaurant was, but sitting out with you in I think Newton or Watertown.
The local in Newton.
The local in Newton,
Yes.
and literally just trying to work with Dr. Price to entice her that this was a place that we wanted her to come. And so I thank you for your support in helping to bring Dr. Price here as well. And it's been truly a pleasure to work with you. So
Thank you very much. Thank you.
Just to pick up on that, you were my chair for the first year. I figured you always go last as a chair, right?
I know, so I was going to let you go after.
Oh, okay.
She's going.
Go for it.
No.
Talking.
Someone just talk.
So I'll start. So you were my chair for the first year, and I can't have thought of somebody better to welcome me into this community. We had some tricky situations. That, Mr. Treacy saying that's my new favorite word, but and you did it in a really thoughtful, caring way. And I will never forget you and Andrew drive it down the day after the vote to have lunch with me so that we could get this done and be support the community of North Andover and let me make the decision that this is really where I wanted to be. And that was a big effort by you guys. I mean, you just got in the car and came down and said, we'll see you in like 5 hours, right? We can say it was, but both of us wanted to make this happen. So that was one of those meals that, although we were negotiating, we were both going to make sure it happened, because I knew very on in a lot of conversations with you that this was the right place for me. And my first year as superintendent, I got so lucky to have a chair who was patient with me, allowed me to make some mistakes, and supported me through some growing pains in my work. So I really, really, really appreciate it.
Thank you.
Been downhill since.
As long as we say that on paper, right?
Yeah, so I have the tiniest window of time with you, Mr. Gross, but that doesn't take away from the fact that I appreciate the leadership that you showed in my first year, and I was certainly a rookie the first few months when you were finishing up your chairmanship, but I appreciate all the education and the patience as well, as was mentioned, and your leadership. So thank you, and I'm sorry to see you go. I have other love note here too.
Well, I would echo a lot of what Andrew said about you. But I guess the way I would sum that up is you're a scientist with a heart. So that's a good way of looking at it. And you've always been my backup on the data, right? Asking the hard data questions. It's like, I don't feel like I'm just out there in the, all by myself on the point. You've been, there with me all along, and I've really appreciated that. And the other thing that I really want to express my appreciation for personally is, in the time you and I have served together on the committee, we've been through some pretty hairy situations, pretty hairy. And you were always a nice calming influence, I thought. I thought you always tried to sort of put a kind of a rational perspective on things when people were literally trying to stay away from the windows because they were worried about stuff, So I really appreciated that particular quality that you brought to many of the unusual activities we found ourselves in. And, we've been through a lot. But the other thing is, I would say that you really helped us make a tremendous amount of progress in a lot of areas. I think we're way ahead of where we would have been had you not have been here and served and participated and made your contribution. So thank you so much.
Thank you, Stan. Thank you.
I guess probably as a source of some of those hairy situations myself, I say, someone who's been in town government for 20 years, you're going to disagree with people from time to time, and I've definitely had my disagreements with you, Brian, but I always commend people who not only put the name on the ballot, but then have the guts to serve, because a lot of people don't. And I say that with the utmost respect for anyone who's ever sat here, sat in a selectman seat, on a volunteer board. You put yourself out there, and everyone knew where you stood on every issue every single time, because you weren't afraid to speak your mind or throw out numbers. But it's been a real honor to serve with you. My neighbor, we're going to lose we had the corner of North Andover, three of us living within, a half a mile of each other. But now you'll be missed. I'm sure Jim will have a little more free time on his hands. But anyways, we have this plaque for you, Brian. Let me just read it to you. For the North Andover Public Schools, this is presented to Brian, I'm a data guy, Gross, in recognition of your outstanding performance as a member of the North Andover School Committee from 2011 to 2017. So congratulations.
Good job.
So I promise not to monologue, but thank you all for some very heartfelt feedback and memories. I do recall the first year joining the school committee. We were facing a $1.67 million deficit, and it was a very hard time to try to figure out where that line was going to be and what had to go. And to have that transition to a very effective leadership team that's making progress. We went through some rough times and wondering how many people were going to come with pitchforks at us, but I believe in term limits, and with my job change and whatnot, it's become very difficult to balance both responsibilities, which I take very seriously. So I know we've got some excellent candidates this year. I can't say enough about how much respect I have for people stepping forward, as you indicated, to enter public service. I'm going to be missing these meetings, although I may not be in the seat, but I will be paying attention, and I look forward to serving my community in other ways. So thank you again. It's been a real joy working with you. Thank you.
So, I think it would be appropriate, Mr. Gross, could I have a motion, please?
Motion to adjourn.
Forever.
I'll second that motion.
Motion made by Mr. Gross, second by Mr. Limpert to adjourn. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. We're adjourned.
Great.
Thank you, everyone.
The most amazing thing is